Joe1 TV, the best. Joe1 TV, the best. Joe1 TV, the best.
On January 20th, President-elect Trump will be sworn in as the 47th President of the United States. The task at hand now is that Trump has a 75 or so day transition period to build out his team before Inauguration Day arrives. And one of the top items on that to-do list is filling around 4,000 government positions with political appointees. And we're watching live now from Fox. I'm Stephanie Quinu. I did want to head back to that story as we continue to take a live look at the White House. So when it comes to those government positions, that includes everyone from the Secretary of State and other heads of cabinet departments to those selected to serve part-time on boards and commissions. Around 1,200 of those presidential appointments require Senate confirmation, although that should be easier with the Senate now shifting to Republican control. Trump's team also pledging that the second term won't look much like the first one Trump established after his 2016 victory. And on day one, I did want to share what is on that to-do list. This is a look at what President-elect Trump has vowed to do: pardon supporters who attack the Capitol, dismantle the deep state of government workers, impose tariffs on imported goods, settle the war between Russia and Ukraine, and also begin mass deportations of migrants. To talk more about this, I do want to bring in Richard Gordon, who is a political analyst. Richard, thank you for taking the time to join us here on Live Now from Fox.
Pleasure being.
Donald Trump in the first speech, or the above one thing to say, or more of the no one can home in a ready for home in a buffet and check. Even I'm a gun of one baby now, I am sure myself. Ready for Tom or dear on my buffet. It is no more my our young crata or hold my piano or so. Besse, yet to say, I will in a me passing young crata and passing your green card no can come home. Do not tell which that will be some that you never heard. And they feel now copying 6 months away and media America Forza on the deport in Padoma, said the France for the Kaya. Almost so bad baby. I must see any baby now. I am to show myself a baby port to him. Baby now soon with them. And Yamama, a crowd France, I be Germany, I be UAE, I be. And say America for baby, and Yamama be a Yasin be a Yamama. Eddie can't cry on someone follow Gianna dear. A sharp and I say no more, say, or the cancer a few ways. A good opportunity to be now the Marco Mukuru. And they say, we are transformation member, and I say, what they are saying, we say, and young one baby say, America for some be deported for an answer. It be a France or a deported for who was deported, UAE was deported, other countries deported, and the young one be a so. If we want to not turn for some of it, Siciano. To move to no can or which they were schooling on an buying hem for Swintino, or I be trim. Nimpono, wow, Bemuse, O Bema, or no, Yonko Bema, yes, I.
On January 20th, President-elect Trump will be sworn in as the 47th President of the United States. The task at hand now is that Trump has a 75 or so day transition period to build out his team before Inauguration Day arrives. And one of the top items on that to-do list is filling around 4,000 government positions with political appointees. And we're watching live now from Fox. I'm Stephanie Quinu. I did want to head back to that story as we continue to take a live look at the White House. So when it comes to those government positions, that includes everyone from the Secretary of State and other heads of cabinet departments to those selected to serve part-time on boards and commissions. Around 1,200 of those presidential appointments require require Senate confirmation, although that should be easier with the Senate now shifting to Republican control. Trump's team also pledging that the second term won't look much like the first one Trump established after his 2016 victory. And on day one, I did want to share what is on that to-do list. This is a look at what President-elect Trump has vowed to do: pardon supporters who attacked the Capitol, dismantle the deep state of government workers, impose tariffs on imported goods, settle the war between Russia and Ukraine, and also begin mass deportations of migrants. To talk more about this, I do want to bring in Richard Gordon, who is a political analyst. Richard, thank you for taking the time to join us here on Live Now from Fox.
Pleasure being with you. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So I did want to ask about the political appointees. Trump already announcing that Susie Wiles will be his chief of staff, and history being made with this announcement. She will be the first woman in history to hold this position. So for folks who aren't familiar with who Susie Wiles is, who is she and what does this appointment signify?
Well, I've had the pleasure to work with her in the past. She's from Jacksonville, the Jacksonville area, and has worked in state government and other parts of politics for a very, very long time. She's interesting. What a choice. First of all, if you remember the show The West Wing, they once asked the president, who should you pick as your chief of staff? And his answer was, my best friend. You should pick your best friend. And when he did it last time, he picked people he really didn't have a close relationship with. Well, he's changing that. Susie Wiles has stood the test of time. I mean, in Trump world, she's been there for 4 years, which is like forever. And she has the ability to be a great policeman in the sense of who gets in to see him, who doesn't get in to see him, who gets to talk to him. Trump has a characteristic that he tends to listen to the last person he talks to. I mean, he's talked about that. A lot of other people have. She's going to be able to decide as the gatekeeper who gets in and who doesn't get in. And I think that's really, really important. I think the fact that she's obviously a woman is important and a great signal of hopefully what his administration can be. There's a lot of criticism during the campaign about this bro attitude around him. And, if she does one thing, if she's able to keep him focused and keep him from going off on these large tangents and attacking people and saying some of the things he said during the campaign, she will be an enormous success. She really will.
So that was the first appointment. There have been discussions about who will be on his cabinet. President-elect Trump taking to social media yesterday to announce 2 individuals who will not be joining his cabinet. And those were former members of his previous cabinet, Nikki Haley and Mike Pompeo. It's interesting to note that he is, just so open about that. But does that signify anything to you? I know he did mention that the future cabinet is going to look nothing like the previous one. What is that strategy?
Yeah, I thought it was kind of curious. I always wonder about people signaling what they're going to do. I'm sort of a fan of just do it. Just do it. Joe Biden said he's going to pick a woman. Well, just pick the most qualified person who happens to be a woman. Similarly here, I think he was making a statement about his feelings about both of them, and there's some of their criticism of him after he left the White House, and that he doesn't want them around again. In all honesty, I think both of them want to be president of the United States. And I think they've made that pretty clear. She's run for it. Pompeo has looked at it. I don't think he wants people in his administration who are planning to run for president and who's going to spend the next 4 years positioning themselves for the next election, which he cannot run for, right? He's constitutionally prohibited from serving again. So, I don't think he wants to be around people whose job to them is, how do I position myself to be president? He wants people who are going to be drop dead loyal to him. Both of those people, who are very loyal and able people, are running for president. And in some ways, they should be happy because they could be out there doing their own thing, making their own path, speaking as they wish, not being, having to toe the line, for example, to what he wants. And I think he was really offended by a lot of things that Nikki Haley did, both as UN ambassador and clearly the things she said about Donald Trump on the campaign trail. And I just don't think he wants people in his administration who are not 100% pro-Trump.
Do you think that there are going to be any surprises? And are there any particular appointments that you're keeping a very close eye on?
Well, they've signaled a lot of the appointments. The biggest appointment for him is going to be Attorney General for 1,000 reasons we all know. Here's someone who's been convicted of 34 felonies. Here's someone who gets to appoint judges around the country, which the Attorney General is very helpful in that process. U.S. attorneys, et cetera. So I think the Attorney General is going to be his top choice. I don't think he's going to pick a stranger again, as he did in 2017. I think he's going to pick a current attorney general. That would make sense to me, or possibly someone out of the Senate. I think that's a big one. Obviously, Secretary of State is huge. The first, you had it up on your screen before. Donald Trump says he's going to solve the Ukraine issue. Well, the only way to solve the Ukraine issue is literally to give Russia part of Ukraine. I mean, because Ukraine's not going to give in. So how are they going to juggle that? How is the Secretary of State going to be involved in that? Who is that going to be? I think that is really critical. He's going to end up, I think, picking someone who has been very clear, probably in the Senate, such as Marco Rubio, has been very clear about not funding, Americans' involvement in Ukraine. By definition, if you don't do that, Ukraine is going to lose this war. They cannot sustain themselves without the United States or the West. So that's a very, very, very big one. The last one I'll just point to is Homeland Security. The Republicans have been merciless about current Secretary Mayorkas. They've been merciless. They've been trying to impeach him. They've done all types of things because of the actions at the border. He's going to need someone who shares his vision completely about deporting immigrants. That person is going to have to be in lockstep with the president because what the president's talking about doing, deporting millions of people, who are here. We've never seen anything like this in the United States. Well, I'm going to say maybe what we did to the Native Americans might be up there, but by and large, this is not something America has seen for quite some time. And the amount of resources it will take to do that, if he actually does it, he's going to need someone totally, totally, totally who shares his vision on that.
So taking a look at this list of what President-elect Trump has promised to do on day one, taking a look at this, what are your thoughts in terms of his directives, his mission on day one?
Well, I'm not surprised, but we've talked about a couple of them. Let me just talk about a few of them. Pardoning the supporters who attacked the Capitol. What a huge mistake that would be. I believe politically, and you don't want to start on day one like that. These are people who broke the law. These are people who did something absolutely hideous to the United States. This was the first insurrection in America's history, a first attempt to stop the lawful transfer of power. And to pardon these people who clearly broke the law is wrong on every ground, moral grounds, legal grounds, every ground. He obviously has the right to do it. He is the president of the United States. It would send the wrong. He should not start his administration this way. It will, so many people will be incredibly upset. Look, how many policemen were hurt during this? How many policemen died during this? So for him to do that, I believe, is a mistake. Two, this deep state government thing. There are millions of Americans who work in the federal government who are not. You talked about the people who have to be confirmed by the Senate. You talked about people who are called Schedule Cs. These are people who are not. These are people who are career bureaucrats who work day in and day out. They might have personal views about things, but they work for the American people. They always have. And to talk about getting rid of them and putting in your loyalists is just wrong. Look, we solved this issue back in the 1870s. This was a huge issue with the civil service, and we passed the Civil Service Act intentionally to make sure presidents can't do that. Huge mistake. Third
I did,
thing, and
Richard,
yeah.
not to interrupt, but we do have a live look that I wanted to share with our viewers. This is a live look from Rehoboth. That is President Biden there walking along the beach. I did want to ask you this because we are talking about the transfer of power, right? The transition between President Biden's administration and President-elect Trump. We were hearing from President Biden saying, and the White House saying that they've now extended, and they're in conversations with President-elect Trump in terms of how to handle that transition. As we take a live look at the president right there, what needs to be done to make sure that the transition is as smooth as possible? These administrations have very different outlooks, strategies, perspectives. How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, transfer of power, whether it's at the federal level or the state level, is a massive undertaking. First of all, let's give credit where credit's due. Joe Biden is not holding grudges, is not doing to Trump what Trump did to him. The president has made it extraordinarily clear to everyone who works with him that they are going to cooperate fully and completely. President-elect Trump is coming to the White House on Wednesday to meet with President Biden. Donald Trump did not afford him that. You will see the president on January 20th handing over power to the president-elect, President Trump at that moment. You are starting to see Joe Biden teach the American people how to get it done. This is what it looks like. This is who we are. And while other people may talk about it, not having a peaceful transfer in the past, he wants to get us back. I think he wants part of his legacy to be that he turned the tide. Now, I got to tell you, every single governmental agency gets changed over. I mean, the people at the top, as you talked about, who have informations, people will have to be briefed on everything that's going on in every single department. And that is a massive, massive, massive undertaking. You need help in doing this. You really need the people before you to help the people coming in. And I will say, just in my personal experience, no matter what the rancor is on top, no matter how much the two sides dislike each other, I have seen people in the agencies working extremely closely with other people to help them take the reins of power. Because when the day is done, people, the vast majority, the unbelievably vast majority of people who go into government service want to serve the American people. And just because someone might disagree with what I believe, and I disagree with what they believe, my job is to serve the American people. And I think a lot of people have that attitude. And so, yes, they'll turn over the reins of power to someone else that they disagree with, but they want to make sure that the country moves forward. Because, again, when this is done, the only thing that truly matters is that the country moves forward and that we as a country do better than we have in the past. That's really all that matters. That's what the transition is supposed to do.
Richard, we appreciate you joining us here on Live Now from Fox. Before we let you go, any last thoughts?
Well, wow, what a week. Yeah, I got to say this. I've said this before. It is just stunning. What has happened this week. It is stunning what happened at the election. The Democratic Party, if this was a house, it's not a fixer-upper, it's not a remodel, it's not take it to the studs, they're going to have to rebuild this thing from the foundation up. I mean, they lost every possible group, that they could, just about. This is a real problem for the Democratic Party. It is going to take serious effort, serious time to rebuild this, to be the party that it needs to be. We're a two-party system, and we need to have parties that can compete. And I think you're going to see the Democratic Party really, really try to figure out at least how to move forward.
That's going to be a lot of discussions right there. The Democratic Party trying to analyze what exactly went wrong and what to do next. As you mentioned, I mean, it was just a stunning upset for, not just the presidency, but of course the Senate. And now we're taking a look at the House as well. And
even lower. State legislatures,
yep.
Local races, I mean, everything. It was, in every sense of the word, a massive landslide, and the Republicans deserve a heck of a lot of credit for pulling it off.
Absolutely. Richard, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
ɔbaa ne ba nso a wɔyɛ saa adeɛ no nso no ɔde akyi a yɛde bɛfa mmara kwan so a ɛde sɛ wobɛtumi kɔ awie wɔ afiase ne ho keka ho. Ebi na nnipa bebree na ɛka sɛ na nka ɛnim sɛ America deɛ saa nneɛma no ɔmo sosɔ so sɛdeɛ UK foɔ so a na ɛwɔkɔ UK schools ahodoɔ sɛdeɛ ɔbaa ne ɔbaa si ɛfa wale ne bɛrima ne bɛrima si fa wale yi. Yɛnim sɛ nka so na ɛnɛ deɛ ɛbaa no sɛ na Donald Trump si n'aban ɛmfoa so. Ewie ama nnipa bebree na ɛbɔ nsɛm de ma Donald Trump wɔ saa nhyehyɛeɛ a ɔsɛ ɔde bɛyɛ ho. Na mmom nnipa bebree naa nso na ɔmo nso no gu gyam sɛ nnɛ yi yɛbɛpia ɔmo ati kɔdɔ ɔmo akɔ ɔmo nkyi. Na Trump ne nhyehyɛeɛ nyinaa ne tirim kɔ nyinaa ne sɛ nnɛ yi no ɔpamo nnipa bebree naa ɔmo ayɛ ɔmo mmara mu na ɔmo ho kwan sɛ ɔmo ntena America kurom na ɔpamo ɔmo sɛ ɔmo nkɔ ɔmo nkyi na ɔmo nso nkɔboa nkɔsiesie ɔmo kuro. Nti na ɛwɔ America na abusuani bi wɔ America na sɛ ɔnni nkrataa na waboaboa mo ho de atwɛn no sɛ nkyɛ obɛtumi ayɛ den abɛpue mu wɔ fie. Mesrɛ wo sɛ wonsubscribe yɛ a na subscribe to Joe 1 TV, like na share na ma afoforɔ nso nya bi nyɛ den ɛnhwɛ. Meda ase. Joe 1 TV, the best. Joe 1 TV, the best. Joe 1 TV, the best.